So the opening of this event will be by the president of Omilos. He will be speaking in Greek and I will be translating.
Να σας καλωσορίσω και εγώ που ήρθατε στην εκδήλωσή μας.
I welcome you also for coming here at this event.
Είμαστε ένα πνευματικό κέντρο που υπάρχει στην Ελλάδα εδώ και 40 χρόνια.
We are a spiritual center in Athens, in Greece, for 40 years now.
Η διδασκαλία που δίνεται είναι στο πώς θα μάθουμε να είμαστε καλά και να βλέπουμε ότι δεν υπάρχουν αδιέξοδα στη ζωή.
The whole teaching that is given in this center is how we can learn to be well in our lives and that there are no impasses in life.
Η ζωή φέρνει προβλήματα.
So life brings along difficulties, problems.
Το τεράστιο ρεύμα της ζωής φέρνει προβλήματα, αλλά φέρνει και κάποιους οι οποίοι διδάσκουν την ανθρωπότητα πώς να βοηθηθεί.
So this great current of life brings along problems, but it also brings people that teach humankind, how to be well.
Αυτοί κατά τη γνώμη μας είναι οι καλλιτέχνες. Είναι η μουσική, οι ποιητές, οι ζωγράφοι.
So in our opinion, these people are the artists, the poets, the painters, the musicians.
Εμβαθύνουμε λοιπόν στο έργο τους και μαθαίνουμε να βλέπουμε τα κρυφά νοήματα μέσα από τα οποία διδάσκουν την ανθρωπότητα.
We deepen into their work and we learn how to see the hidden messages that help humankind.
Και πώς μέσα από αυτά τα διδάγματα μπορούμε να είμαστε καλά στη ζωή, στην πράξη.
And how through these messages, these teachings, we can be well in our life in action.
Σήμερα θα έχουμε μια ανάλυση για τον Καβάφη. Ο Καβάφης στην ουσία δεν ήταν ένας ποιητής, ήταν ένας φιλόσοφος.
So today we have an analysis about the poem of Kavafis. Kavafis was not a poet, actually, he was more of a philosopher.
Θα δούμε λοιπόν αν θα σας πείσουμε.
So we will see if we will convince you about that tonight.
Ευχαριστώ πολύ.
Thank you very much. So now we will see a video that talks a bit more about us and what we do and our work at Omilos in Greece.
Omilos Εξυπηρετητών is a school of thought and action founded in 1980 in Athens, Greece. It is a place which is open to all year long, where we work selflessly, studying and synthesizing all the currents of human thought, creation and expression. The aim is to find their essence and implement it in everyday life in order to make it better. All our activities are carried out solely based on the principle of selfless offer.
Ο Όμιλος Εξυπηρετητών, όπως σας είπα πριν, είναι μια σχολή σκέψης. Αλλά δεν είναι μόνο σκέψης, είναι και πράξη. Μας ενδιαφέρει να μάθουμε όλες τις φιλοσοφίες, όλα τα ρεύματα. Να μάθουμε ποιήση, αλλά να βρούμε την ουσία τους. Και αυτή την ουσία, που είναι η ουσία της ζωής, να την κάνουμε πράξη. Γιατί αν δεν την κάνουμε πράξη, δεν έχουμε κάνει τίποτα. Όλο το έργο του ομίλου είναι αυτό. Να γνωρίζουμε τον εαυτό μας, να εμβαθύνουμε βαθιά μέσα μας, να βλέπουμε τις όψεις που έχουμε, να μελετάμε ποιήση, φιλοσοφία, ζωγραφική, χορό, τραγούδι, μουσική και να προσπαθούμε όλα αυτά, σε όλα αυτά να βρούμε την ουσία της ζωής, να την κάνουμε πράξη και μέσα από αυτό να μάθουμε να είμαστε καλά.
Through the self-study groups, we work on Know Thyself. We deepen into the self with creative meditation. We discover our infinite potential to be well, and we pass into action. everyday, essential action that brings about immediate changes and improves life on all levels. With very simple, practical ways, we can get to know ourselves and experience the magic of life by actively participating in it. And that is spiritual healing in our life. We carry out many groups for the inner development and knowledge of the self. Groups on human relationships, literature, poetry, philosophy, science, art. Meditative relaxation and balancing of the energy in the body, emotions and thoughts. Chorodromena, symbolic movements performed in groups for the balancing of the energies within us and around us. Groups for children and adolescents. The spiritual healing section of Omilos works on a daily basis, selflessly for the healing of people from all over the world who have requested our help for all kinds of physical and mental illnesses. The spiritual healers work ceaselessly through healing sessions at our premises and from a distance, as well as visits to hospitals or at home for patients who have mobility issues. Spiritual healing is always carried out absolutely free of any financial charge or any other obligation, just as all our activities are. The work of Omilos also includes the publishing of books on spirituality, human relationships, poetry, practical philosophy, and other subjects from our publishing house Megas Sirius. Seminars and talks in Greece and abroad on the betterment of everyday life and on human relationships. Presentation of our work and philosophy at international academic and literary conferences. The presentation of the work of distinguished Greek literatures. Based on the principle of selfless offer, we carry out theatrical performances at homes for children, hospitals and orphanages. Book donations to schools, universities, correctional facilities, public libraries, etc. Regular blood donations. Meditative relaxation groups and groups that help people overcome their fear and anxiety, which are open to all. Our work has already expanded to London with many activities. On a weekly basis, a self-study group on knowing thyself and a meditative relaxation group for the balancing of body, emotions and thoughts. Meditation and discussion groups. Spiritual healing. Cultural events, workshops, talks at cultural institutions and colleges, and television programs on the philosophy of Omilos and on our social and cultural work. Already, our book The Master Volume 1 has been published in Turkish. The epicenter of all our activities is the human being and the infinite potential that exists within each and every one of us. Come and learn how you can be well every moment, every day.
σαν Εβραίος στον ναό του Παρνασσού. Υποκρίνεται τα δεινά τους πνευματικούς γίγαντες που επεμελίωσαν την γνώση στη χώρα μας. Πέρασαν, έφυγαν, αλλά είναι κοντά μας, παραμένουν. Και στους άξιους συνεχιστές. Ευχαριστώ ιδιαίτερα το Φιλολογικό Συμβούλιο του Παρνασσού, έτσι νομίζω γιατί το συγγέραμε. Όπως ακούσατε, εργαζόμαστε στον όμιλο εξυπηρετητών. Ο όμιλος έχει σαν σκοπό να βοηθά τους συνανθρώπους μας ανιδιοτελώς που τονίζω αυτό, να τοποθετούνται ορθά στον εαυτό τους, να κάνουν αισιόδοξες σκέψεις και να βοηθούνται άμεσα στα προβλήματα τα οποία αντιμετωπίζουμε όλοι μας καθημερινά. Αυτή η διδασκαλία δεν είναι θεωρίες, είναι πράξη. Επιβεβαιώνεται καθημερινά. Και εκείνο το οποίο προσπάθησε ο δάσκαλος να του μεταφέρει και να κατανοήσει είναι ότι όταν ο άνθρωπος πιστεύει, κάνει θετικές σκέψεις, επειδή ακριβώς ο άνθρωπος είναι μέρος της οντότητας, λειτουργεί μέσα στην οντότητα και διαθέτει. Και επομένως η σκέψη του ανθρώπου υπάρχει ένας όρος, δηλαδή η ενέργεια ακολουθεί τη σκέψη. Όταν λοιπόν η σκέψη του ανθρώπου κατευθύνεται σε ένα συγκεκριμένο στόχο, όχι ιδιαίτερα με κάποια ιδιαίτερη συγκέντρωση κάποιους προϋπολογισμούς ή τι άλλο, αυτά είναι ανοησίες. Οι σοβαροί πνευματικοί άνθρωποι είναι οι συνεχιστές του Σοκράτη, είναι οι συνεχιστές της διδασκαλίας της χώρας μας. Εμπαθύνουν με την διαλεκτική. Εργάζονται στον χρόνο της ερχόμενης. Βοηθούμε λοιπόν τους ανθρώπους να αισιοδοξούν, να εργάζονται για τις σωστές ανθρώπινες σχέσεις, να είναι ανταποκριτικοί, να βοηθούν τους ανθρώπους τους και γενικότερα να φέρουν ισορροπία στο περιβάλλον του οικογενειακού. Το πρώτο όμιλος της συμπεριφοράς είναι η οικογένεια. Η οποία διευρύνεται, είναι η ομάδα, είναι η κοινωνία. Αυτά ήθελα να πω. Ευχαριστώ και πάλι τους πνευματικούς ανθρώπους οι οποίοι αναγνώρισαν το έργο του δάσκαλου, αν θέλετε πιο απάνω ποιητή, είναι καλύτερη, αυτό με ενθαρρύνει να προσπαθήσω, να συνεχίσω. Έχω δηλώσει ότι είμαι μαθητής. Εγώ είμαι μαθητής και των πνευματικών ανθρώπων της χώρας. Ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ.
So that was in a nutshell who we are and what we do. And we thank, of course, Mike Harris and Morley College for giving us here tonight the opportunity to tell who we are and also to talk about this poem and delve into it. So now we are going to hear a short biographical note written by Kavάφη himself.
I am a Constantinopolitan by origin, but I was born in Alexandria, in a house on Sheriff Street. I left when I was very young, and a great part of my childhood I spent in England. Later I visited this country as an adult, but for a brief period of time. I also stayed in France. During my adolescence, I lived for about 2 years in Constantinople. It has been many years since I went to Greece. My last work was as an employee in a state bureau under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Public Works of Egypt. I speak English, French and a little Italian.
The poetry of Kavafis is held in the highest regard, not only in Greece, but on a European level, and we could even say a worldwide level. So the poem we are presenting tonight is classified as a philosophical teaching poem according to Kavafis' own classification. So, as the original language that the poem was written is Greek, we chose to hear also a Greek recitation from a Greek actor, Dimitris Horn, a famous Greek actor.
Σαν έξαφνα ώρα μεσάνυχτα ακουστεί αόρατος θείαστος να περνά με μουσικές εξαίσιες, με φωνές. Την τύχη σου που ενδίδει πια, τα έργα σου που απέτυχαν, τα σχέδια της ζωής σου που βγήκαν όλα πλάνες, μη ανοφέλετε θρηνήσεις. Σαν έτοιμος από καιρό, σαν θαραλέος, αποχαιρέτανη την Αλεξάνδρεια που φεύγει. Προπάντων να μην γελαστείς. Μην πεις πως ήταν ένα όνειρο, πως απατήθηκε η ακοή σου. Μάταιες ελπίδες τέτοιες μην καταδεχτείς. Σαν έτοιμος από καιρό, σαν θαραλέος, σαν που ταιριάζεσαι που αξιώθηκες μια τέτοια πόλη, πλησίασε σταθερά προς το παράθυρο κι άκουσε με συγκίνηση, αλλά όχι με τον δηλώντα παρακάλια και παράπονα, ως τελευταία αναπόλαυση τους ήχους, τα εξαίσια όργανα του μυστικού θειάσου, και αποχαιρέτα την Αλεξάνδρεια.
So, Kavafis was inspired for this poem by some historical events that happened thousands of years ago, and Evangelia Gioni will help us with these historical events.
Hi, from me too. So, I don't prefer microphones. We were discussing that with Mike earlier, but I will today use it. So, we are in the times of the Roman Empire. As you can see from the title of the poem, it's about Mark Antony. So, let's see. So, we are in the Roman Empire after the death of Julius Caesar. We have three generals there and three politicians, very famous one, Mark Antony, Octavius, and Lepidus. And they have formed the second triumvirate, these three guys. So they have divided among them the conquered land of the Roman Empire, and Antony has taken the territories in the east. You can see on the map, Rome, the capital of the Roman Empire with the blue. And there in the east, where we have the red circle for you in Kilikea, he met with Cleopatra, the famous one, the last queen of Egypt, of Greek descent. So, infatuated, he fell in love with Cleopatra. And what he started doing, because he was passionate for her, he started giving her as presents some of his territories, the territories of the Roman Empire. So, basically, Cleopatra, in the beginning, she had the dark green territories, and Antony gave her all the rest. And he started neglecting his duties, both to the Roman state, but also to his Roman wife, because he was already married to Octavia the Younger, who was the sister of Octavius, one of the three generals and politicians. And at the same time, so here we have Antony and Cleopatra, and what they were planning to do basically was to form a new empire and rule it together, having Alexandria, here's Alexandria, okay, having Alexandria as the capital. Octavius, who was in Rome, after getting rid of the third one in the triumvirate, Lepidus, he convinced the Romans to turn against Antony too. So this war was determined in Greece, again. It was part of the Roman Empire back then, of course. In Actio is the one in the red circle, so they gave a very significant naval battle there, where Antony and Cleopatra were utterly defeated. So after this defeat, they returned back to Alexandria and they confined themselves there, awaiting the end to come. In the next year, in 30 BC, Octavius, with a very powerful military force, comes outside Alexandria and is ready to invade it. So Antony and Cleopatra, seeing that the end was upon them, committed suicide. So it is that night, imagine that we are in that night, before Octavius invades Alexandria, and it is this night that the poet chooses as an inspiration for his poem. A Greek historian, a very famous Greek historian, Plutarch, writes, and biographer and essayist, writes about the life of Mark Antony as well, and he describes what happened in the last night. Plutarch was born in Greece in 46 BC. He wrote many books which have survived until this day. One of the most famous ones is called Parallel Lives. There he writes about the life of Mark Antony. And let's see what he says about this last night. Don't forget, we are in the last night before Octavius enters Alexandria. What happened that night?
Indeed, during the dinner, it is said that he requested from the servants to pour wine and serve food to him lavishly, because it was unknown, he said, if they would be able to do this the next day as well, or whether they would be serving other masters while he was lying dead, a corpse, a nothing. That night, around midnight, while there was complete silence in the city and dejection from the fear and the anguish for what was about to come, suddenly, it is said, that melodic sounds were heard of instruments of every kind, and the cry of a crowd, accompanied by Bacchic Evi Evan, and frolics of satyrs, as if a troupe of Dionysus was leaving very noisily. Their path seemed to pass through approximately the middle of the city and towards the outer gate facing the enemies. There the noise became deafening, and then it died out. It came to the ones who contemplated upon the sign that God, with whom Antony primarily wanted to be like and identified with, was forsaking him.
So Kavafis basically takes the title of the poem from an exact phrase by Plutarch. Let's see it. We will see it in Greek first.
Εδώ κηδέτης αναλλαγιζομένης στο σημείο, απολείπειν ο Θεός Αντώνιον, ο μάλιστα συνεξομιών και συνοικιών εαυτόν διετέλεσε.
So, in Greek, the title of the poem is Απολείπειν ο Θεός Αντώνιον. It is the translation here, God forsakes Antony. It's taken from the exact text by Plutarch. So, perhaps it's a bit of a lot of information, but keep it in mind because we will need it for the analysis.
But before we step into the analysis, we are going to give a bit of some information on how we are going to do this analysis, how we are going to deepen into the poem. So, first of all, let's begin with the basics. We are not philologists, so therefore our entire work and approach is not from a philological point of view, neither do we wish to make some kind of review of the poem. But as you saw in the video, and as the president of Omilos said before, we work on Know Thyself. And this is the perspective that we use to approach poetry and all other arts as well. So our goal is to deepen into poetry, to find the essence of every poem, and apply this essence to our everyday lives. To come to know our own self better through a poem, as we can also do through a song, through a painting, a movie. So the founder of Omilos, Dimitris Kakalidis, has written 2 volumes, The Wisdom of the Poem and The Wisdom of the Short Story, where he delves into poems and short stories of contemporary Greek literateurs, using a method which has been characterized by the spiritual world of Greece as the beginning of a new philological school, a new Greek, absolutely Greek path that branches out into worldwide currents. Indeed, it has been said about these 2 books by distinguished persons of the letters and the arts that they are works of great spiritual value, a jewel for Greek literature, as they constitute a pioneering part of the spiritual heritage worldwide. This method has been presented at an international academic conference of literature by the Athens Institute for Education and Research, and relevant articles have been published in the academic journal Athens Journal of Philology and many other literature magazines. So it is also available for anyone who wishes to read it. We decided, though, for this event tonight, not to analyze this method one by one, step by step, but rather let ourselves deepen into the poem and experience the poem. To allow the poetry and the words pass inside us, to let them resonate within us, and see where and how these relate to us. Poetry is a magical thing, and it is this magic that we want to experience all together here tonight. Therefore, we will carry out this analysis exactly as we would in Greece, at Omilos, in one of our groups. So we also have some hints that can help you with the analysis, and Evangelia will...
I'm good with it. I like it. So, first of all, in every poem there is hidden wisdom, a knowledge which is expressed by each creator through their work, because poets unite with the current of life, and through this union they express, consciously or unconsciously, some human truths. And we could say that through this way they teach the humankind in these deeper inner truths and give people spiritual breaths and solutions where sometimes they experience impasses. So this is the essence of their works. This is the essence of poetry, and this is the deeper function, we believe, of all poets. And this is why you will notice that in our analysis, we don't speak about one specific poet. So yes, we do have Kavafis here, of course, but it is this inner function of all poets that we talk about. And this is why you will see we speak about the one timeless poet. This was hint number 1. So through deepening into poetry and through the symbolization, this wisdom that exists within the poems can emerge and reveal to us truths about the nature of the human being and life. The starting point, as you can see, of every analysis is that the human being has within them infinite power and infinite potential to be well. This is where we start from. That people are already complete entities and have the ability to express this in action in their lives. And the second starting point is that every human being is the entire humankind, and that the humankind is the universe. So through this way we start from the specific, the small, the limited, and gradually we expand to move to the broadened, to the infinite. So in this poem, for example, we may have Antony, who is a specific person in history, he actually existed years ago, but through Antony, you see the symbol, and through Antony we will talk about each one of us, about the entire humankind and life itself. But I would suggest, Marianne, if you agree, to see all this. When out and okay, when one switch is on, perhaps the other is off. Okay. So let's see all this in action. Would anyone like to recite the poem? Anyone brave and long prepared? You?
I can read.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your name?
Larianne.
Lorianne. Nice to meet you. I'm Adelia.
Nice to meet you. Okay. The one on the left, yeah.
Yes, the one on the left. This is the poem by Kaváfi. It's translated in English, of course. And this is the extract from Plutarch. We have it by the side because it will help us in the analysis. Okay? So you read the poem. No more Plutarch.
When suddenly, at midnight, you hear an invisible procession going by with exquisite music, voices. Don't mourn your luck that's failing now, work gone wrong, your plans all proving deceptive. Don't mourn them uselessly. As one long prepared and graced with courage, say goodbye to her, the Alexandria that is leaving. Above all, don't fool yourself. Don't say it was a dream. Your ears deceived you. Don't degrade yourself with empty hopes like these. As one long prepared and graced with courage, as is right for you who were given this kind of city, go firmly to the window and listen with deep emotion, but not with the whining, the pleas of a coward. Listen, your final delectation, to the voices, to the exquisite music of that strange procession, and say goodbye to her, to the Alexandria you are losing.
Perfect.
Wonderful.
I really like poetry.
It shows. It shows. So, at this point, we are going to do a small exercise all together. So, I would like you to sit back and relax, close your eyes. Bring your mind to the poem as you heard it previously. Let your mind free. In our exercise, you are Antony. Imagine the moment. You are in Alexandria, and Octavius is just outside the gates. You know very well that the end of the city has come. There is absolute silence, complete silence. Nothing is heard. It is the well-known silence before the storm. And suddenly, exquisite music is heard. Shouts, cries, like a celebration, like a procession of God Dionysus. Imagine yourself hearing all these exquisite sounds, the music, the noise, but without being able to see something. It's an invisible procession. Let your imagination free and experience it. And then time pauses for a little while, and the poet speaks. The one, the timeless poet. Let the poem pass inside you. Let all the words pass inside you deeply. And you can now slowly open your eyes. So, what is the first understanding of this poem? Would anyone like to talk about any first impressions of the poem? Yes, Floriana.
I'm really glad that I got to read it because it you know, it takes on a character in your mouth as you're like feeling it through, and like it is a lament to a lover almost. You know, it's this moment of like letting. It feels like this interesting moment of like letting go the responsibility of something and being like, that was beautiful, but like over there, gone.
Nice. Anyone else would like to say something about what he or she felt through the poem, what feelings, emotions or thoughts the poem created? Yes?
I felt like I was at a turning point in my life. I was looking at things that maybe I was losing and thinking about what I'm going to do now. Like I have to make a choice of some sort. The end of an era.
The end of an era, yes, indeed.
The beginning of something else.
Of course, the beginning of something else, indeed. So therefore we can see by our own experience that the poet is not addressing actually Antony himself. In any case, this is something that has happened years ago. It's something that has finished as an event, as a historical event. So the poet is actually addressing the human being throughout time. He's addressing to all of us, to each and every one of us. And specifically here, we can see Antony as a symbol. And we can bring in mind what we heard from Plutarch a bit earlier, that he was the person that actually, at some point, he gave up. He saw that the end was coming, he gave up, and he confined himself in Alexandria. And so we can see that he actually represents anyone who has accomplished some things, but has restricted oneself to these, forgetting about being a fighter, becoming attached, gravely attached to things that have been conquered, accomplished, and of course all the plans for the future. Antony was planning to live his life with Cleopatra in Alexandria, having their own kingdom. So, respectively to a person, this could be plans for the future, of how one wishes for one's life to be. So we can say that Antony is the limited field of the human being, what we think of ourselves to be, the limited idea we have about ourselves.
Can I add something? Don't forget that Antony was a warrior. First of all, he was a general, he was a warrior. So this is important in our analysis, because even though he was a warrior, at this time that we are discussing all this, what's going on, what's happening, he has given up. He has forgotten that he is a warrior. He has confined himself in Alexandria, just passively waiting for the end. We know from the historical facts that he actually killed himself. So it is, as Mariana said, the limited field of the human being, what we think of ourselves to be, not what we actually are. He was a warrior, but now at this point, he is the person who gave up, okay?
Yes, and at this point, it's also useful to say a specific element about Kavafy's poetry. He used what we say the Kavafyan irony, which means that he wrote a verse saying one thing, while he was meaning exactly the opposite thing. So keep this in mind because it will help in the analysis, and actually here, the irony resides in the title. Just bear it in mind. So let's take a look at the poem itself. It begins, when suddenly at midnight you hear an invisible procession going by with exquisite music and voices. So here in the first verse we have two key words, suddenly and midnight. We all know that midnight is actually the hour where the previous day ends and the next day begins. So we are in front of a great change. Something is ending, closing its circle, and something new is beginning.
The change in era, you said?
Yes.
It's midnight.
But this is also something that happens suddenly. We could say in an unexpected way. And then, at this time, an invisible procession goes by with exquisite music and voices. So, as we saw from the text of Plutarch before, this was actually, this was a procession of Dionysus. This is what the historian mentions. So, I don't know if you are familiar with Greek mythology and its deities, but Dionysus was a deity that expressed the joy of life.
We should leave this question. It's like a test where everyone should leave the audience answer. If they know about Dionysus, the deity. Well, of course it's easier for the Greek people who are among us. But do you know? No? Do you want to share it with us?
I'm sharing a lot, aren't I?
You seem to be as long prepared and graced with courage. What can I say?
That's lovely. I know Dionysus. Dionysus is of wine and enjoyment and hedonism, and there's an interesting link between like the wild and the urban world in some ways, right? Like quite a wild creature and a little bit androgynous, but very much like celebration and joy and like loneliness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yes, basically, Dionysus is the deity of celebration, wine, of nature, of all the alternations in nature, creation, rebirth. It's, we could say, the entire current of life, which includes everything, encompasses everything. So, and not only this, not only the current of life, which includes everything, but the current of life that calls you to participate. Because when you are in a procession of Dionysus, you cannot just stay there by the corner and look, oh, what's going on there, how beautifully they do things. You participate, you become one with this.
Indeed. And Antony himself, as we saw, he says that God forsakes Antony, who wants to be primarily like him and identify with him. So we see that Antony is a person that wants to unite with this current of life that Evangelia just described, which is exquisite and magical. But what would this mean? What does this union mean, this unification, this participation? It means that he would see the essence of life. That is to say that all this current, that everything is inside him, and in the end he cannot lose anything since everything is within him. So what happens, this of course applies, as we said before, to every human being, because Antony is not just Antony, it is every person. So in our story, of course, Antony hears a procession, but instead of uniting with it, instead of becoming ecstatic with this procession and the exquisite music, he becomes scared, he's frightened, and in the end, he gives up, as we know from the historical events. So what happened is that he felt that he was losing. Not only was he losing Alexandria and all that he knew and all that he planned for, but he was like he was losing the power within him, because he wanted to be identified with Dionysus as a deity. So if he thought that this procession was leaving the city, it was like he was losing the power within. At this moment, at this very moment, the poet comes and speaks to every person who is in such a state of great change, let's say, to tell them that this change is not an impasse, it's not something that is ending and that's that. So let's see, how does he do that? He, as you can see from the poem, it's like he's giving advice. And let's see what the first piece of advice is. Can anyone tell us what the first piece of advice is?
Don't mourn your luck.
Don't mourn your luck. Yes, that's failing now. Can you please read us the three next verses?
Don't mourn your luck that's failing now. Work gone wrong, your plans all proving deceptive. Don't mourn them uselessly.
Okay. So what not to mourn? What not to mourn?
Things have not gone as you, as he had supposed. Yeah.
As he was planning, because he was making a lot of plans. He had the love of his life. They would live happily ever after in a new kingdom in Alexandria. So we could say that all these things is a circle of life. Could we say this? It's a circle of life for him. So his dreams, what he had accomplished, what he wanted to do, the woman he fell in love with, all those things which he identified. It's what he thought of himself to be. Anthony was saying, I am these things. And this is the symbol of Alexandria in the poem. So Alexandria in the poem symbolizes what we think of ourselves to be, all the things with which we identify ourselves, the things that we have accomplished, our plans, our dreams. Okay? Does it make sense so far? It does.
Yes.
Yes. So instead of mourning, what should he do?
He should be open-minded.
He should be open-minded.
Yeah.
Yes. And how? Where do you see this in the poem? If you can point, if you can help us to be open-minded.
Yeah, like to look at the greatest of courage and say goodbye to her.
Mm-hmm.
It's like reorienting your view or point of view towards something new and allowing that, inviting that flexibility.
Exactly. So instead of mourning, as one long prepared and graced with courage, say goodbye to her, the Alexandria that is leaving. And if you see here this verse, we have Alexandria that is leaving. In the end, we have Alexandria you're losing. I know we have said to you to keep a lot of things in mind, but just add one more, if you can, please. Because it does make a difference. Now, for the time, let's say that it's Alexandria that you're losing. So, it is a fact. Okay. So it is a fact that you're losing Alexandria. Whether you like it or not, whether you accept it or not, whether you agree or not, you don't care, you are losing Alexandria. And you are losing it because you have fallen into passiveness, into fear. You have become fearful. How, Mariana, should he say goodbye?
As one long prepared and graced with courage, of course. So, again, the poet here is saying that you're a fighter. Within you, there exists this infinite capability of coping, of moving on, of fighting. You are already whole and complete. You are long prepared, and you have not lost the power that you think that you are losing. The true power, the one that you have not yet realized that you have. And you are not abandoned. You have been preparing for this moment for a long time. It's not something just out of the blue. You are actually prepared for it. So what you need to do is not appropriate all these things or identify yourself with these and only these. Meaning that, okay, you have an Alexandria, you have the love of your life, but don't identify yourself with these things only. See yourself beyond these things, that you are everything. So along comes the second piece of advice here at this point, which is, who will say? What is the second piece of advice?
Kaváfi said that this is one of his philosophical
teaching poems.
So
yes.
He has a lot of advice.
It's don't fool yourself. Don't say it was a dream. Your ears deceived you. Don't degrade yourself with empty hopes like these.
Exactly. So, what is not a dream? What is not? Don't say it was a dream. Your ears deceive you.
The exquisite music.
Exactly. Yes.
He wants to maybe try and ignore it, pretend that that's not really.
Exactly. So don't say that this procession is a lie. Don't hope that this ending has not come. This is an end of a circle and Alexandria is leaving. Don't degrade yourself with empty hopes like these. So therefore, the poet here talks about a very important concept. It is that of acceptance. Accept that this circle is a one that is now closing, and accept it fully. So here again, the verse, as one long prepared and graced with courage, is repeated. This means that the poet is refocusing, we could say, Anthony, and therefore every person, on the infinite power of our own selves, and tells us that this city has been given. It says, as is right for you who were given this kind of city, which means that you are worthy of having this kind of city. It was right for you to have it. You must not pass now into a rejection. Do not reject yourself or your works or your life up until now. This brings along a kind of redemption, because it's like he's saying that even though, like the poet is saying, that even though the end of Alexandria has come, it was necessary for you, for all this to happen, to do what you did, to live what you lived up until now. It was not all in vain, because what happened through this circle is that you gained the field of consciousness that came along with this circle of life, and the consciousness and all the experience that you had through the circle. So what you need to do now, the poet says, is accept. Love your life up until now, but also love the fact that it is now closing, this specific circle. It is now changing, so that you will be able to take the next step, to do the next step, which is what? What is the next step?
Feel and face it head on. Yeah, to like really feel it and face it head on with like full emotional presence.
And in the poem?
Yeah, it's like go firmly to the window and listen with deep emotion, but not with the whining, the pleas of a coward. But yeah.
So the third piece of advice is go firmly to the window and listen.
Yeah.
Why window? Why? What does the window symbolize here?
Your life.
Your life.
The light.
Light. When we go near the window, there is more light. Right.
Perspective.
A perspective. So a new perspective with more light. I'm synthesizing everything. A new view, yes.
Yeah. To connect to the world outside.
To connect with the world outside.
Indeed.
To look out and not in.
To look out and not in. Okay. We may as well leave. You have analyzed the poem already. Perfect. So yes, so if we could, let's say, synthesize what you have said so far, which is absolutely to the point. First of all, the window gives a distance from things. So the poet doesn't tell us, go out, start running in the streets, see what's going on, follow them. He says, see things from a distance, see your life, as you said, from a distance, but from a new perspective, with more light. So expand, basically, what you see. Don't see only within the city, because if you go and you see from the window, then perhaps you will see outside the city walls. So see that yourself, because we said that Alexandria symbolizes what we think of ourselves. So the poet says, see, put a little bit of more light in the way you see yourselves. See from a new perspective and expand this point of view, the way you see yourself. And then he says, go go firmly to the window. So have a firm position when you go to the window. But usually when we go near a window, we see. But here the poet says, listen, because there's no need for you to see. Switch off the external vision, we could say, and listen. Listen to the exquisite voices. Listen to the music, to the wonderful music of the current of life that is passing by, and let this music pass inside you. So listen in an esoteric, in an inner way, we could say, because the change will not happen outside of you. The change, the new perspective with more light and so on, will happen inside you. So let the current of life, let its vibration pass inside you and vibrate your entire being, vibrate your soul. So the procession leaves, and according to Plutarch, the procession goes exactly outside the city walls. There's a very, very strong sound heard, and then it stops. But it leads outside the city walls. So it is as if it says, stop being limited, stop being within Alexandria, within the city, expand, go further beyond the city walls. Let all this current of life vibrate you. And listen.
With deep emotion. So when someone listens with deep emotion, but not, of course, with the whining and the pleas of a coward, what does this mean? When someone listens with deep emotion, what does it show? Anyone?
Open mind.
Sorry?
Open mind.
Open mind, yes.
It's like resonance, you know? It's that moment of like really acknowledge what this means to you and like the fullness of what that is, and not in some like running away, excusing yourself, like really kind of trying to change anything, but just like fully acknowledging like the fact that you have been there and that you are there and that you are connected to that happening.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think that was the temporary in it. That like when you're connecting back to the death, you can remember that you felt this way before and then you moved through it.
Of course. So deep emotion can mean exactly what you said. It's something that is resonating within you deeply, because maybe you remember a time before, and of course because also when you listen with deep emotion, you're not confined, you don't have a specific emotion, but as was said, you have an open mind. So in one case, we can see that it might have another quality. You have a deep emotion when you're losing something and you're crying and you're whining, because these are also emotion. But on the other hand, a deep emotion comes when a sort of expansion comes along, when you realize something, and this is something that talks in the depths of your being. You're in front of an expansion, of a broadness. So it says, the poet is saying, let the exquisite sounds pass into you and bring deep emotion. Let the entire current of life, which is the sounds, which is the procession, pass into you. Let yourself experience it deeply and profoundly. And then accept what is happening. If you accept it, it finally becomes, as we said, the Alexandria you are losing. Because we said before that there is a difference between the Alexandria that is leaving and the Alexandria that you are losing. It was the Alexandria that is leaving because it was something that is happening to you. It's something that life just brings along. But now it's something that you are consciously leaving. You are consciously letting go of the Alexandria, of the limitations, of the confinement of yourself within certain walls, both literally and metaphorically. So you are consciously leaving all those things that you think you are, because what you have understood, is that your own self is much larger, is much broader. You have accepted to lose it because you have accepted to pass into another Alexandria, a greater one, a broader one. And then this is the final delectation. Listening to these exquisite sounds is a final delectation. Why?
Say goodbye. And then he brings the kind of warrior bit in and says, you're losing. Put it in a...
It's a fact.
Yeah.
You're losing it. So basically, I don't know if anyone else would like to add something.
But at the same time, it doesn't say that took your panic. Sort of, you have to accept. It doesn't show anywhere any signs of panicking.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So he says, don't panic. Just say goodbye, and this can be your final delectation. You can enjoy it. Say goodbye and enjoy it.
Panic can create other problems.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yes.
I know this part here is very active. I don't know what's happening to you, to your left. I don't know if you were the parliament, what would this mean, but what's going on here? We have like... We listen as your final delectation. We would be grateful if you shared with us your impressions. I don't, because here we are more active on this side. I suppose you are not feeling like depressed or low or having to say goodbye here on the next side.
So we're enjoying what they say.
Interesting. He said interesting because he was a soldier.
You were a soldier?
No, because he was a soldier. He's accepting his defeat.
He's accepting his defeat.
But we are not all soldiers. Mm-hmm. So how would that relate to us?
We are not soldiers. He was actually, yes, he was a general. He was a soldier. But if we expand it a bit, as we said, because he was a specific person, but let's expand it to us and to life. We're not soldiers, but we are warriors in life. We're fighters. We set goals, we have dreams, we have visions, we fight for those visions, or not. At least this part I know is fighting, I don't know the other part of the audience. So, In this sense, we are in this aspect of Antony. And this is how the human being actually evolves. We have vision, we set a goal, we fight to achieve it, we gain knowledge and experience, a field of consciousness when doing so, and then this circle at some point closes, and then we set the next goal and the next vision, and we fight for the next one, and some plans might go well, some others no, but as the poet says here, even if you accomplish things that you want or not, the point is to remain the fighter in
Is he
life.
not criticizing Antony because he killed himself?
Sorry, you think that he's criticizing?
Because Antony killed himself, didn't he?
Yes, in the historical facts, yes, he killed himself, but basically, he killed himself. Basically, he killed, if I say so, the potential within him. So the poet is like a step before that, and he says to all of us, you know something, what's your name?
Doreen.
Doreen.
Yes.
So it's as if he's saying, Doreen, you know something, don't kill the potential within you, you can be well. Even if you're losing Alexandria, you're still a fighter, you still have the strength within you. The current of life is all around you. It is the herd current of life, the current of life that you can touch, that you can smell, that you can feel. Let it pass inside you. Enjoy what you have, the field of consciousness that you have acquired from your experiences so far, and go to the next circle.
I really want to look at the word delectation, because I think it's a really interesting word to use in this, because so often it's tied to food and the act of eating and a real sensual engagement with the world. So even to have this your final delectation, food is this amazing relationship with us that it's really necessary, and it's also a beautiful enjoyment. So there's this really interesting, almost ritualized act to it of your final delectation. Absorb it, take it in, but really savor it and taste it and know that you're consuming that moment, know you're being with it. I think it's a really interesting word to use.
Yes, because when this happens, it's that your entire being that is focused there. You're actually enjoying, let's say, food, or you're taking it, you're tasting it, you're smelling it, you're seeing it, everything. So this word here is something that has to do with the conscious choice. That's why there is this difference between Alexandria that is leaving and Alexandria that you are losing. It has to do with the consciousness. Then it becomes a delectation. Before, the procession was something that, let's say, Antony, as a person, symbolically, was fear. It caused fear, because said, oh, okay, Dionysus is leaving Alexandria. It's like I'm losing everything. So this was something that was unconscious. It was like an unconscious reaction to something. Whereas throughout the poem, there is a climax, let's say, there is a crescendo here. And at the end, you come to the Alexandria that you are losing, because it's something that you do consciously. And that's why it's a delectation, because it's your decision, it is your choice, it's your being.
It's like saying, take the essence. It's the one that she said about the taste and the aroma.
Yes,
it's
the essence. The essences of life. Yes, exactly.
Or in other words, say that you chose to say goodbye.
Yes.
It's not chosen for you.
No, it's a conscious choice. So at this point, let us do another exercise. Again, we will ask you to close your eyes and see that all of this that happened to Antony is something that has happened throughout time to all people. It has happened to us. Maybe it's something that will happen or something that has already happened at some point. So let us concentrate a bit more and contemplate on what we have heard up until this point, all the concepts, all the meanings. And let's say, in the end, does God forsake Antony? That is the question. Again, we will remind that Kavafis used irony in his poems quite oftenly. Think about it a bit. So who wants to answer the question? Does God forsake Antony? Yes?
I'm feeling maybe, if anything, God was inviting Antony to grace his courage, to bring forth his courage. That's just within him anyway.
Yes. So you're saying that he was not forsaking Antony, but he was inviting him to a broader consciousness, we could say.
Or he wanted to make him stronger in life.
Yes. Stronger in life. Yes.
And every change can make you stronger.
Exactly. Because you always, in each change, if you do it consciously, then your consciousness is expanded even more at each change that happens. So, yes?
I think that the real question here, at least for me, and what I understand from the poem, is whether Antony forsakes something.
Yes, exactly.
So, I don't really think it's a God question, but an Antony question.
Yes.
What I see and what I understand is that Kavafis here is trying to say to Antony not to forsake himself.
Exactly. So it's like Antony didn't get the message here. He didn't get the message that he should move forward to the next circle. So, as you say, it's like he forsake the fighter within him. Because Antony was, as we said before, Antony is every person, and every person is a fighter. So the poet is coming here and saying, do not forsake the fighter within you, the warrior, the one that knows it's his or her strength. And go on to the next circle, expand your consciousness. Because otherwise, what happens is that you forget your higher nature, the power within you, the position, that which your soul has actually chosen to do.
But it's also, isn't it, in order to expand yourself?
Expand, yes.
One needs to be died. This is dying in the context
Yes.
of symbolism.
Yes.
The limited self,
Yes.
as we
Yes.
said earlier, because when
Yes.
you say Antony not to forsake Antony, it's, you said this is the question, whether he would forsake himself. But which self?
Yes.
Not the limited self, because what he did was to identify, on the one hand he wanted to be like Dionysus, so on the one hand he wanted to unite with the entire current of life, but what he actually did was to identify himself to Alexandria with all that Alexandria symbolizes. So it's about not forsaking Antony, but the big picture of Antony, with his potential, not the restricted Antony. Because when he confined himself to this restricted idea of himself, then what he experienced was the dead end. This is why, an impasse. This is why he gave up. Because he said, I'm in front of an impasse. I'm hitting my head on the wall. There's nothing else for me. I've lost everything. I've lost myself. There's no hope. There's nothing. So you're right. But it's about not forsaking our true potential to be well.
Yes, so as we said before, the procession of God Dionysus is this current of life that calls upon every human being to unite with it and in the end to become life itself. So that was that was what the procession was calling Antony to do. He said, come, let's go on to the next circle, let's go on to expand the consciousness. Then again, sorry, just let me, we can see here that there is, let's say, a slight hint, a notion of another function of human beings. We can see that there is a constant but unsuccessful effort to control life and its circles. So people want to control their lives, to control everything that happens to them. So what we do is that we attach ourselves to what we have conquered and we try to control it. We limit ourselves in this way to within a circle that has already closed or is closing. So what we become afraid of losing all of this. That is when we feel weak and are unable to go on. That is when we abandon the warrior inside us. That is when we feel that God forsakes us or that the power within us abandons us. But there is something that we can never ever lose.
What do you think?
Dream. Embrace the courage.
Dream.
Dream.
Experience.
Sorry. So when suddenly someone wants to say something, please don't say no. All at once now. Okay, so you said your dreams.
Yes, your hopes.
Your hopes. But these, the poet says, can be deceptive. You can lose them. They may not work out.
But you shouldn't lose them.
Then?
You should hold it, hold to it.
Hold.
Don't.
This is what he tried to do.
Because that's where
Didn't
you
work
get
out.
your strength.
What were you saying, sorry?
But we mustn't lose faith.
Faith.
Yeah.
Don't lose faith. Faith in?
Courage.
In? Courage.
The experience,
The experience.
the consciousness, I say, the ones that you learned from all this circle.
Okay.
Your consciousness.
Consciousness. Sorry, the lady here. She has raised her hand earlier than you. I need to be fair.
Your ability to listen, to listen, to reflect, not just the immediate.
Your ability to listen and reflect on things. Okay.
The continuity of life and the fact that you're already part of that and it's going to keep going and that flow is always there in the background no matter what you think you are in amongst it. Like if there was to be faith in anything, it's just faith in continuity.
In the flow of life.
Yeah.
Faith in the flow of life.
Yeah.
This is what God here symbolizes, because we're not talking about religion, but this is the procession. If we symbolize the procession, is the current of life, as we said. So faith in the current of life, which is huge and encompasses everything. So all these things that you have mentioned are, could we say, that the field of consciousness that we acquire within one circle of life. So the dreams and how they worked out or not, our experiences, the faith that we have in the flow of life, our ability to see it and realize it, that there is this flow of life. So this, we could say, I don't know if you agree, is the field of consciousness that we acquire within a circle of life. It is very simple to understand it. If you think, let's say, of how we grow up. Okay, let's take this example. So, we're babies, of course, in the beginning. But in order for us to go on to the next circle, which is to become toddlers, become toddlers, we need to say goodbye to us being babies, of course. We need to move on to the next circle. But what we have learned as babies still remains within us. So when we're toddlers and we're about to become adolescents, we need to say goodbye to this childhood kind of era. We're growing up now. But what we have learned as toddlers, so to talk, to speak, to walk, to how to be social with other kids, not to slap them on their face, and so on. This is a field of consciousness that remains within us when we're adolescents, and the same when we become adults. So we need to say goodbye to the previous circle, move on to the next one, but the next one is always broader and includes all the field of consciousness that we had gained in the previous ones. So this is what this is the one thing that can never be lost. You can never lose this. All the other things change constantly. We cannot control them, unfortunately, even though we would like to. We try to, very hard, but we cannot control the flow of life, as you said. It's huge. You cannot control it. But the one thing that remains stable within us and we can never lose is the field of consciousness. There's another thing that we cannot lose. Of course, let's take this for you. Now, this part of it.
Maybe let's say the stand to follow this flow.
The stance to follow this flow. This is what you cannot lose.
You cannot lose this if you are in.
For most of the times, I used to go to funerals and people were crying and said, "This is the end, and we're here because it's finished, everything finished." And once I went and they said, "We are here to celebrate that person's life. We're not here to cry." People didn't wear black and all that morning. We are here to celebrate. So I think you should also appreciate and celebrate things that happened in your life. And because that can give you strength.
This is mentioned in the poem.
Yes, I mean, the English, they go to a funeral, they say, "We're here to drink wine and all that. We're here to celebrate that person's life."
It's the final delectation.
It's not the end. It's something good happens. So it's always something good comes out.
Yes, Emma, you have something like what happened.
Yeah. In fact, actually, I was just scattering my mother and father's ashes and reading this poem, and we had a celebration.
Is the thing, the other thing we can't use, like breath?
Right.
Yeah, like this breathing that we don't breathe, we die. That was like really functional way of thing of saying, but it's like bringing yourself back to the breath and meditation and that.
Yes. Maybe the breath that poets give flowers.
This is the one thing that we cannot lose, basically. An inner breath. Because, okay, yes, if you lose your breath, you die. But because now we're talking about poetry and symbols and life and all of us. So the other thing that we can never lose is the help and the support, let's say, that comes from the current of life, from God, as he says here, from the entity, from
the universe,
from
the higher self of all people.
How does it say in Star Wars? May
the force be within you, yes. Infinity,
exactly.
Of course.
It seems that artists, poets, painters, writers, great actors, great musicians, always come and give this breath, as you said, to people. And they come and through their work, they say, you know something, there is no impasse. See, it was right for you to have this city. You were worthy of having this city. You can see things differently from another perspective. Give more light to it. Don't be in the darkness, in the shades.
They advise.
Yes, somehow we can say they advise or they teach.
In a way, people.
Yes, and if I might add, someone might read this poem and never hear such an analysis that we have done, like the one we have done tonight. But the meanings are there, the concepts are there. So if one reads the poem, then these meanings, these advices, all these concepts pass within. Even if this person never hears such an analysis, the messages pass, they always pass. And they pass through poems, they pass through works of art, through music, through everything. Films.
Can you see the poem again? So, let's reread the poem with what we have said so far. When, at the time of a change in your life, at the time when a circle is closing, you suddenly hear the heard current of life with its exquisite, magnificent music calling you to participate in it. It is useless to mourn for all the things that you have accomplished, for the plans that didn't work out, for all the things you think you are, because you are long prepared for this moment. You are a fighter in life. You have the infinite power and infinite capability to move on to the next, broader circle that is opening now. So accept that all this is leaving. Things are changing, whether you like it or not, and do not pass into fear and passiveness. There is no impasse. Don't deny the fact that you actually heard the current of life, that it vibrated you, that it called you to follow it, to flow with it, and to move on to the next circle. Because, I'm telling you again, you are worthy of everything that you have done, that you have accomplished. All this was necessary to happen. Nothing was in vain. Because the knowledge and the experience that you gained, the field of consciousness you have acquired, always remain inside you, are a part of you, and prepare you to go to the next, to the more broadened field of consciousness. So, have a firm position and observe your life from a distance. Expand yourself beyond the city walls. You do not need to see, just listen. And let the vibration from the majestic current of life pass inside you. Let it vibrate your soul, because the change will happen within you. Experience the exquisite current of life. Let it pass inside you. Experience it with deep emotion. And then, accept what is happening. Live consciously all those things that you think you are, because you have found another Alexandria, a greater one, because now you have realized that yourself is much broader, much more expanded. All the things you were saying. And basically this is what we learn in Omnios, this is what we do, to see that there is no impasse in life. Exactly this analysis. I believe that if this has passed inside all of us, then you've understood who we are and what we do. There can be no dead end, there can be no impasses when we see the greatness of the power, the potential that we have within us, when we see that actually the entire universe is within us, exists within us. Everything. And this is why we study art, we study poetry, we study philosophy. We hope this was at least the final direction. Yes, it was.
Can you stay in London?
Well, we cannot stay in London, but we do have a group in London that they meet every week, twice a week, Thursdays and Sundays, and we would like to invite everyone to our winter seminar. So you're all invited in Greece. We're holding a seminar in December. You can come, join us, and we will do many such groups, depending into poetry, relaxation, meditation, why not? Discussions about the current of life. Okay.
So, does anybody want to say something, an impression, something that they felt, describe how this analysis reached out to them or resonated within them?
Yeah, I would like to say that at the very end, going through it and at the end, there was this, the phrase that it says that, as one long prepared, and then with grace with courage. So no matter what plans that I have and I've made and went wrong, I'm graced with courage to, I can move forward to the next one and I can embrace and I can live life and just carry on with that. It just gave that strength of also being free, not being afraid to have plans, to do it, and not, okay, if it goes wrong, it goes wrong, but to live and to experience this, and also know that you can move to the next one. You can do it something even after that and beyond that, as you're saying, with a child, or growing up that stage, and then so there was that feeling of not being afraid to live life. There's a courage there to live life, to go ahead. Yeah, exactly. That was what I got and felt at the end when we reflected.
Like seize the day.
Yes, exactly. Seize the day. And
seize the day.
Yeah.
I think the best medication is not taking any medication as pills or all that. The best therapy for me is to be in a group like this, analyze life and all this. I think that's where you get the strength, and because in today's world, so modern world with all this technology, we have more people suffering from stress, anxiety, depression and all that. There's so much going around today with life. And I think this is what for me brings more results than any other type of medication for this type of stress. If you analyze and take it in a philosophical way and talk to other people.
Yes, all these problems exist because exactly people do not acknowledge that they have this strength within them, as the person that talked before said. People are long prepared, they have strength, but they don't acknowledge this, they don't know it, they're not aware of it, and this is why all the stress begins and all the problems start out, either health problems or stress or anxiety or fears but then you have a poet that comes and says, you know, this is not who you are, not only anyway. You're not only these emotions that you are feeling, you're much broader than this. You're even beyond this. You have infinity within you, and this applies to every human being. And this is what the poet here says, not to Anthony, to all of us, that infinity exists within. It is a constant expansion of our consciousness through the circles that some close, some open, and it's let's say, as was said before, a continuity of continuously growing circles. And this is something that applies to every human being. Yes?
It's really, I find it really interesting to just take note of the different levels of engaging with the world and stopping and listening. And it's really beautiful to take time to take a poem like this and again as a group really listen and dig into it, because I feel like for a lot of us we do have that moment of resonance, right? You find a beautiful poem and it speaks to you and you don't always know why. You don't always have the language to take out what's going on the inside and put it out, and it's really beautiful to see what happens in the communal space and with the communal knowledge to sit down and look at something and find out why do we connect to this? How can we kind of find the anchor points in that makes sense of something that can be really overwhelmingly ephemeral being in life. Yeah, it's a beautiful manifestation.
Exactly, and because we need to slowly close this presentation, we have until the end. All this that we have done today, all this that we have discussed, everything that you have said, that we have said, that has been going on for a couple of last hours, all this, as you said, is what we say spiritual healing in everyday life, in our lives. This is what we do. All the lessons that we do in Omilos are called spiritual healing in our lives. So when talking to each other, it can be healing. When you embrace the other person, and when you don't want anything from the other person. When you sing a song, it can be actually healing. When you write a poem or when you read a poem. Mike, I don't know if you agree. It can be healing, of course. And in everyday life, when you cook a meal and you want the ingredients to be nutritious and tasty for the delectation for the people that you love, this is healing. When you sleep.
When you do garden.
When you?
When you garden, yes. Yes, when you do garden, this can be healing. It all has to do with the inner stance with which we do things. If it's through what we have discussed today, then anything can be healing. We have one more day in London. This is the final thing I'm going to say. One more day in London. We are also here tomorrow. Here not in Morley, unfortunately. But we are at Camden, Women in Health, and at 5 o'clock we have an open discussion and meditation group on spiritual healing in everyday life. What we said now. You are all invited tomorrow as well if you want to join us. We will be happy to see you. That we have 5 more minutes.